people asking me to recommend a school for them to study at. People's priorities are different. So ACAP at that time was the cheapest social work course you could find here in Australia. Hello my lovely people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chioma. For anyone who has never met me before, welcome, welcome, welcome. Anyway, so today I want to talk about my experience of studying at ACAP. So ACAP is the Australian College of Applied Professions. That's what they are called now, because apparently they changed their name recently, I think just some months ago. But at the time that I studied there, they were called Australian College of Applied Psychology. Yes. So it's still ACAP, okay, but the P at the end has become something else. It's changed from psychology to professions. But that's all right. So ACAP is a private institution. It's owned by Navitas. But before I go into talking about my experience, I feel like I should explain why I am making this video. I have received lots and lots of comments and questions from people asking me to recommend a school for them to study at. Some people have asked for a compilation of schools where they can study social work. And my answer has always been consistent along the lines of the fact that I haven't really done any extensive comparisons between schools. And so I really cannot give anybody any definitive answers around that. And also, I think that people's priorities are different. So the things that you might want out of that experience would be different from mine, for instance, and that would inform how you would go about your search for a school. So, you know, just as an example, or to give you a bit more background about that, at the time that I chose to study at ACAP, there were two major considerations for me. One was that it had to be in Sydney, and number two, it had to be affordable. So ACAP at that time was the cheapest social work course you could find here in Australia. It was about $42,000. The other one that followed closely after that cost-wise would have been Flinders University in Adelaide. But like I said, I wasn't going to Adelaide for anything, okay? So that's why I have really not been able to answer people, because I don't know what your priorities are. I know that budget is usually a big one. People want the cheapest schools that they can find. But as well, if this was when I was ready to do my social work education and I wanted to find a school, one other major consideration, and maybe this consideration would have trumped all the other things that were important to me back then, would be the course offering. So the kind of units that I was going to be studying. At that time, I didn't pay so much attention to it because, you know, social work was a very new concept for me. I come from Nigeria. In Nigeria, social work is not a highly developed practice. So coming in here, I didn't really know what to expect. And so I didn't pay a lot of attention to that aspect of my search. If there's an area of specialization that you're particularly interested in, then you want to make sure that you end up in a school that offers units along that line, okay? I didn't do that, and I felt like maybe my education would have been a little deficient in some areas. And so I am making this video today in the hopes that it helps you to refine your goals and your priorities and the things that are important to you. So basically, just ask yourself, what do I want to get out of this experience? What is important to me? Now, talking about ACAP does not mean that I am endorsing them. Definitely not. And obviously, ACAP is not sponsoring this video. They don't even know that I am talking about them. Okay, so I am only talking about my experience here. I am not suggesting that anyone should study at ACAP or not study at ACAP. Please do your own research when it comes to the school that you might want to attend. So one thing that I loved about ACAP was the small class sizes. In the campus that I studied at here in Sydney, it was mostly courses related to allied health professions that they were offering, right? So just by the way that ACAP is structured, it means that the class sizes will be small because they are not like your traditional university type environment with lots and lots of courses that people can choose from. So the fact that there was such an intimate feel to the classes, we all knew each other on first name basis. Same with our lecturers. They all knew all of us. They knew our names. They would recognize us when they ran into us on the elevator and things like that. So I really loved that. And I feel that for me in particular, coming back into study after 10 years of no formal education and doing it in a brand new country, new system, adjusting to a new life, I felt like it gave me a good opportunity to transition back into study and feel supported. Following off the back of that would be the supportive teachers. I really loved having those interactions with my teachers. I found them to be helpful, supportive, encouraging. There was never a silly question. They were more than willing to not only help with the subjects that they were teaching, but they also volunteered valuable information about practice as well. Again, just going by the structure of ACAP's study environment, it also meant that it attracted more mature age students. And this might be a good thing for you. It might be a not too good thing for you, depending on what your priorities are. Some people might prefer the social environment of a traditional university where there's lots of activities always happening. There's lots of people. The campus is always buzzing with student life and student activities and things like that. ACAP is not the kind of place where you will get that sort of experience. It might be a deal breaker for some people, but I feel like it was good for me. It was what I needed at that time. I can't say for sure that being in a conventional university would have been a bad thing. I'm not saying that. I really do not know, but I loved having to study with mature age students like myself. People who appeared to also have different layers to their lives that they were navigating at that time, not only studying. So there were people who were working full-time jobs, people who had kids. You know what I mean? So seeing that most other people you were studying with were having kind of like a similar life experience as yourself at that time I think it was validating. So I really liked that. Now, ACAP had a lot of late classes. I'm talking about classes scheduled for later in the day. I can't say that I enjoyed that, especially during winter. It wasn't fun getting back home close to midnight. Yeah, that is one experience that I wasn't really fond of. Okay, the late classes. Now, I don't know if things have changed. Like I said, it's been a few years since I left ACAP, so maybe things have changed. And also, just to mention that at the time that I started studying my social work course there, social work was still a baby course. It had only been introduced like a couple of years prior. As a matter of fact, they still had provisional accreditation for the social work course when I started. But coming into the end of my first year, or was it in the middle of my second year, they were granted full accreditation. Now, social work is fully accredited in ACAP, but it was a baby course. So I don't know if that's the reason why it felt sometimes like social work was not as well supported as the psychology and counseling courses. They were still building the structure around how they offered the social work course. So I don't know if that's the reason why they could only fit social work classes later in the day. I wouldn't know. I am really hoping that things have changed and they have wider flexibility around class offerings and all of that. So one other experience that I also feel it's important to talk about, and this is a positive actually, was the fact that within the time that you're studying there, if you're identified as a high performer or a high achiever in your course, you might then be offered positions that put you where you can help other students and actually get paid for it. So they've got the PASS program. PASS is PASS. This is what it is. So to become a PASS leader, you actually do not even need to apply for the job. They identify you and then approach you for the job. So I was approached coming into my second year, I was approached to be a PASS leader. And I held that position until I was close to graduating, and then I gave it over. What I really want to highlight here is how PASS helped me, not only within the time that I was studying, because I was getting paid, right? Which was a good thing. But important to note would be how it laid the foundation for some of what I am doing now. So because I had that experience working in a higher institution, like in a tertiary environment, it was a valuable addition to my CV. And I believe it is one of the reasons that I was selected for this role. I work in a university now, and I remember that during my interview, they wanted me to talk more about my experience as a past leader. So that was definitely something else that I was happy about in ACAP. Now, I don't know if I would have had that kind of experience if I had gone to a bigger university with a bigger population. You get what I mean? So what I'm just saying is that in ACAP, it might be easier for that sort of thing to happen because you're more visible. You're someone with a name, not just a student number. It's one of those experiences that I am really grateful for, having gone through ACAP. Every job I have applied to since I left ACAP, I have used my head of school from my days in ACAP as one of my references, and she has always been happy to oblige. When I applied for the job that I am doing right now, I reached out to her again. I had already been gone for like 2.5 years, almost 3 years, but she was very happy. She remembered me when I called her up again, and she was like, yes, I would be more than happy to provide a reference for you, and she did. I've spoken about supportive teachers. I've talked about some of the things that you might consider to be my positives. I want to ask if you're getting any value from this video, and if you have watched a few of my videos already and you enjoyed them, would you consider subscribing? I really appreciate it if you would do that. And again, please do not hold back if there are people in your life, in your circle, who you feel would benefit from some of the information that I share in my videos. Please share it to them. Share within your communities, whether it's on WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. Okay, share. And give me a thumbs up before you click out of this video at the very end. I'm hoping you stay till the end. Anyways, let's continue. Now, some of the things that you might see as not so positive in my experiences at ACAP would be basically things related to how management functioned at that time. When I say management, I have kind of lumped a lot of things in there. I've talked a little bit about some of the struggles I had as an international student, and please watch that video. It will give you a better insight into some of the things that I struggled with. It was while I was at ACAP that I was threatened with deportation. Please go and watch that video because it wouldn't make sense for me to have to rehash that whole story. When I started my course on there 2 trimesters in, my course progression kind of changed, and it was at the point that I was about to start my first placement. They botched it up. It was an admin failure, I would put it that way. I almost ended up not having a place to do my placement, and being a student on a visa, anything that affects or impacts on your course progression ultimately goes back to affecting your visa. Unfortunately, some schools do not really understand this. And so it was a struggle. All of a sudden, it became my problem to have to fix that, to have to follow up. What it meant was that the people I started my course with, people that I had already started building friendships with, relationships with, suddenly we all had to part ways. We all ended up graduating at the same time, but it just felt like I broke off from the rest of the group and then had to progress through the course in a different path. It wasn't really fun. That didn't happen only in my first placement. My second placement was an almost similar experience to my first one. So I felt like that wasn't properly managed, and I really was not happy about that. Again, things might have improved because, like I said, social work was still very new at that time. So who knows, things might have improved. Another thing that I enjoyed, which I think is worth mentioning, was the learning support. Okay, the learning support was great. It was a bit skeletal when I started, but I could see the improvement year on year, trimester on trimester until we graduated. It got to the point where they were offering one-on-one consultations with students. They had always had that feature, but I love one thing they did. I think it was really smart. They decided to bring that experience closer to students. So instead of a student coming to meet them in the office, they would come meet the students in the open spaces where they could sit down with the student, have a chat over coffee. I found that really great, and a way to break that barrier between students and management and all of that. Another thing that I feel could have been better promoted rather would have been services for students, especially around mental health support. Yes, ACAP has a counselor, but I feel like the role of that counselor was very invisible. There wasn't a lot of promotion around it. Now, I don't even know if it was just one counselor for the whole school or if there were a few of them. It felt to me like there was just one person in that counseling role. So I don't know if that is a more fleshed out structure now, if they've done anything to improve that aspect of supporting students. Like, I don't really know, but it would be great if that structure is in place. Okay, another thing that I love about ACAP, another thing that I have found really helpful is the alumni community in ACAP. Not helpful in the sense that I have met any of them, but I do know that they organize a fair few events within that community. Some of them are online. I love the fact that they offer free professional development courses, which you can attend as an alumni for free. I really like that. I've attended a few which were really helpful. Every once in a while, something pops up that tickles my interest and I attend. So I really like that about ACAP. So it's just those little things. And like I said, yeah, there might have been experiences that were not so great, things that I really hope that have changed, especially around the management culture in ACAP. But in terms of the learning and teaching experience, I think it was great for me. I enjoyed it. It was a positive, definitely a positive for me. I hope this helps you to think more about the kinds of things that are important to you, what kind of support you would like when you are studying, whether you're coming in as an international student or a domestic student, right? And just before I go, I don't think it would be right if I left without giving you at least fee information for international students. So like I said, when I studied there, it was 42,000 for the 2 years, but I just checked before making this video and apparently things have increased as they always do. So the fees right now for international students is $51,312. Yeah, I think it is still one of the cheapest you would find. Other courses that I have seen recently for social work are like in the 60,000 range. So at 51,000, I think it's still competitive. But like I said, it might come down to other factors for you, not necessarily cost. So I hope you have found this helpful. Before you leave, don't leave this place with my thumbs up. Leave it here. You brought it in here for me, so please don't go home with it. Thank you very much, and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. I'll see you again in my next video. Bye bye.